She was never found. The real case that haunted an entire town. It was 2:30 a.m. on a warm June night in 1992, when the quiet neighborhood of Del Mar Street in Springfield, Missouri, fell into silence so deep it felt wrong. Inside the small one-story brick house, 3 women were gone, vanished. Their beds were neatly made, their cars still in the driveway, their purses on the counter, and the porch light shattered on the ground outside. Even Cinnamon, their tiny dog, trembled under bed, refusing to come out. The front door was unlocked, and the coffee pot still warm. It looked as if they had just stepped outside for a moment, but no one ever saw them again. By sunrise, the street was packed with friends, neighbors, and worried family members, all whispering the same question. Where did they go? Police arrived to find the strangest crime scene they had ever seen. No signs of struggle, no blood, no forced entry. It was as if the 3 women had simply been erased. And yet, in the still air of that summer morning, one neighbor swore she heard a muffled cry around 3 a.m. But when she looked out her window, there was only darkness and the faint hum of distant highway lights. That was the last trace of life from Sherrill Levitt, her daughter Suzie Streeter, and Suzie's friend Stacy McCall. All 3 women had spent the night celebrating the girls' high school graduation. They had danced, laughed, and taken pictures. Everyone thought it would be one of the happiest nights of their lives. Instead, it became the start of Springfield's longest nightmare. Hours earlier, everything was normal. Suzie and Stacy left the graduation party just after 1 a.m. They were tired but excited, talking about future college plans. Their plan was simple. Drive to Stacy's house, then sleep over at Suzie's place because Stacy's house was full of relatives. Sherrill had left the porch light on for them, like she always did. At 2:15 a.m., a neighbor saw their car pull into the driveway. Then nothing. When Stacy's mother called the next morning, no one answered. Worried, she drove to the Levitt home and found the cars parked neatly outside, keys in the ignition. The front door was open, and inside, she found the purses lined up together, as if someone had placed them there deliberately. Even stranger, all 3 beds looked like they had been slept in. Nothing was stolen. Nothing was broken. The only thing out of place was a shattered porch light and a small, half-melted candle on the kitchen counter that hadn't been there before. Friends came in and out that morning, touching things, cleaning up broken glass, and even fixing the bulb on the porch light. They didn't realize they were destroying vital clues. By the time police arrived, the crime scene was a mess. Detectives were left with nothing but questions. There were no footprints, no fingerprints, no note, just silence. Days passed and rumors spread. Some said a man in a van had been seen near the Levitt home around 2 a.m. Others claimed Suzie had been followed for weeks before graduation. Police chased hundreds of tips, but each one ended in disappointment. The phone lines were jammed with calls. Even the FBI got involved. Yet every lead turned to dust. At night, search teams combed through fields and creeks. Helicopters flew overhead, their spotlights sweeping across the trees. The people of Springfield gathered at candlelight vigils, praying for answers. But deep down, everyone felt the same cold truth creeping in. The women were gone. Then came something strange. A voicemail arrived on the Levitt home answering machine the day after they vanished. The voice was garbled, distorted, and filled with static. The caller said something about being caught and the girls. But before investigators could play it again, a family friend accidentally erased it. That message might have been the only real clue they had. Weeks became months. The missing posters faded in the rain. The town's once bright spirit dimmed. Sherrill's salon sat empty, the closed sign gathering dust. Suzie's old high school locker became a memorial covered with flowers and pictures. Stacy's friends kept her seat empty at graduation practice the following year. No one moved on because no one could. And then, in the middle of August 1992, 2 months after the disappearance, something terrifying happened. A man walked into the Springfield police station, claiming he knew exactly what happened to the 3 women. His hands shook and his eyes darted toward the door. He said he had been there that night, that he had seen the van and heard the screams. The detective leaned forward and asked, "Where are they now?" The man swallowed hard, looked down at his trembling hands, and whispered, "You won't believe me even if I told you." Before anyone could stop him, he stood up, ran out of the building, and vanished into the night. He was never seen again. The police tried to trace him, but he had given a fake name. His description didn't match any of the known suspects. And once again, the case went cold. But that single night, the night the mysterious man came forward, would soon lead to a new chain of discoveries that would change the investigation forever. The days after the mysterious man's visit left the entire Springfield Police Department uneasy. Detective Mark Harlan, who had been on the case since day one, couldn't get the man's trembling words out of his mind. "You won't believe me even if I told you." Those words echoed through the station like a curse. Something about the man's pale face, his shaking hands, and the fear in his eyes told Mark he wasn't lying. He had seen something terrible. That week, police received an anonymous letter with no return address. Inside was a crudely drawn map with a red X marked outside the town limits, near an abandoned quarry. The note read, "You'll find them where the ground breathes." It didn't make sense, but Mark decided to follow the lead anyway. At dawn, officers arrived at the quarry. The air was still, the fog hanging low over the gray rocks. They brought dogs, shovels, and flashlights. The dogs barked wildly at a mound near the edge of the site, digging and howling. But when the officers dug there, they found nothing but old trash and broken glass. The ground was hollow in some places, as if something had been buried and removed later. It was another dead end. But Mark couldn't shake the feeling that whoever wrote that letter had been there before, and maybe came back to take something away. Meanwhile, the town of Springfield was changing. Every person looked at their neighbor with quiet suspicion. Doors that had once stayed unlocked were now double-bolted. Teenagers stopped walking home alone after dark. The Levitt house on Delmar Street turned into something like a haunted landmark. People slowed their cars when they drove by, staring at the windows as if they might see the three missing women looking back. Sherrill's salon had become a place of whispers. Some said they'd seen a white van parked outside the house the night before the disappearance. Others swore they heard strange sound from the nearby woods around 3 a.m. But every rumor blurred the truth more. There were hundreds of tips, and none of them led to the women. Then one night, about 6 months after the disappearance, Detective Harlan received a phone call at his home around midnight. The voice on the other end was low and nervous. "I know what happened to the women," the caller said. Mark froze. Before he could ask questions, the man continued. "You're looking in the wrong place. They're under the house." The line went dead. Mark rushed out, calling a small team and heading to Delmar Street. They entered the Levitt home for what felt like the 100th time. The smell of dust and forgotten perfume still lingered in the air. The house had been locked for months, untouched since the early investigation. They pulled up floorboards, checked the crawl space, and scanned with ground radar equipment. Nothing, not a single clue. Yet, in the quiet of that house, they all swore they could hear faint tapping sounds, soft, rhythmic, like something hitting wood from below. But when they stopped to listen closer, it was gone. Just silence again. The sound haunted Mark for weeks. He replayed it in his head every night before bed. Then, one morning, a woman walked into the police department carrying an old, scratched cassette tape. She said it had been left in her mailbox with no note. The label read only, "Play me." When they played the tape, it started with static, then a faint voice, a young woman crying. Between sobs, she said, "Please help us. They said no one will ever find us." The tape ended abruptly with a sharp noise, like a door slamming shut. The woman on the tape sounded eerily like Suzie Streeter. The FBI analyzed it, but couldn't verify if the voice was real or faked. Some believed it was a cruel prank. Others, including Detective Harlan, believed it was a message from the missing. As the years went by, theories multiplied. A kidnapping, a revenge plot, a secret stalker. Every year on June 7th, the townspeople gathered with candles and prayers, hoping for closure. But closure never came. The case became a shadow that lived with everyone who remembered that summer of 1992. And then, 30 years later, in the fall of 2022, a construction team digging near the old quarry hit something solid beneath the dirt. The foreman thought it was just a buried pipe, until one of the workers brushed away the soil and found what looked like a small piece of faded fabric. The same kind of floral pattern Stacy McCall had worn the night she vanished. Police were called immediately. The site was sealed off. Forensic teams arrived within hours, scanning, digging carefully. The workers stood in silence as the ground gave way beneath the heavy equipment. Something was down there, something that had been waiting to be found for decades. And as Detective Harlan, now an old man with gray hair and tired eyes, stepped onto that same soil, he whispered under his breath, "After all these years." But before he could finish, one of the officers shouted, "Sir, you need to see this." The lights swung toward the pit. There, half buried in the dirt, was something that made every single person freeze in place. A wooden beam, a small chain, and the unmistakable outline of a human hand.